Hello and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Photoshop by Eduonix Technologies. In this lecture I'm going to be going over making selections, continuing from the last tutorial on selections introduction or part 1. This one we go into some more advanced stuff. So let's take a look at tolerance. I didn't explain that too well in the last one. Right now it's 115. Let's set that to something lower and you can see the difference. Set to 25. As you can see, it selects less. It's less deviation from the initial pixel that you click. But the higher the number, the more deviation. So the maximum amount's 255, as you can see. 255 will pretty much always pick up everything, no matter what. Now, with this on 0, let's select contiguous and turn it on. Yours may already be on contiguous. And look, what contiguous does is, and you can see with it off, it only selects colors in sections that are touching. So if it's just a little island of green and contiguous is on, it'll only select that island, not other islands of the same green. Whereas you can see with it off, it selected other areas. Here's a really easy way of seeing. Now it's on, and it's even with the tolerance at 255, it only selects one because they're not touching. If you drew a little line between the two, if it was blue at 255, it would connect, and if it was orange at even 10, it would connect with contiguous off. One thing also is when you drag a selection with a marquee and you hit space in the middle of the drag, you can move your selection while you're still making it. I don't really use it that often, but just something to add to the previous selections tutorial. There's more options under Magic Wand. Things like point sample, which you don't really need to change, just look it up on your own as far as that's considered. It's not really important for right now. Let's just stick with the normal stuff. You have one thing to note on the control bar. As you see me clicking here, you have the options to for whatever the new selection does. It can subtract. It might help you keep your hands free if you were holding in Control, Alt, Shift, or Command, Option, and Shift to do those things. But that's basically what it is when you're adding to a selection. Sample all layers will make it so it doesn't matter what the layer is. If I were to select one of these boxes, it would also highlight things on other layers, like the plant layer if there was an orange, like in that stem. So that's the Magic Wand tool. And if you notice, it's really similar to using Magic Wand with contiguous off. So let's take a look at some quick adjustment layers, even though we'll go more into it in the future. I've opened up adjustments and properties, and I just want to create a quick mask here. So you go up to Window, open Adjustments and Properties, group them together, the panels. Now on the adjustments, with the layer selected that you want, you hit one of the adjustments. In this case I'll hit hue saturation, and it automatically adds a clipping mask that'll do that to the entire thing, an entirely white clipping mask, so you know it's doing it to the entire photo. So with it open, I'm going to hit color range, when you can also go up to select color range, but I'm doing it here because this creates a more permanent selection right away. You can always disable the mask or do whatever you want. Holding in Alt or Option, whichever one you have, Mac or PC, and you can sample the colors in the actual photo, and you can you hold in Shift to add to your selection. So you can use these buttons too, but I suggest you just use Shift and Alt or Option on a Mac. So you can see the image as I'm holding in Shift and I'm dragging the eyedropper around. You can see it picking up all of the colors. Now local color clusters, that option is equivalent to contiguous colors. Now if you get some that you don't want, in this case since they're not touching, I can just go in with a lasso and remove them, but otherwise you would just subtract from that color. Now since it's in the upper left hand corner, you choose a color that's the most different from the flower essentially, but I just remove these manually. But anyway, just want to make sure you have, or we have all the purple selected here. So here I'm going to remove some of the colors, and you'll see what it does to the actual flower as well. But anyway, you alt click the thumbnail after this, and it's a little bit easier than using the lasso, and it'll turn what you see into a mask. You can tell in the upper left hand corner. You pick a dark color and you can just paint out what you don't want. And this is a really common way to make selections in and of themselves, is if you like painting more than using line tools and such, then you should hit Q to make your selections and just paint over what you want selected, and you know. But this is from alt clicking on the mask thumbnail. So if you have a mask, which is a the best way of doing selections, if you've already made your selection, at least saving it in the mask. I mean, just having it in the mask form. So this is going to be a little sloppy since we haven't gone into more advanced tools. Yeah, otherwise I would blur this out a little bit. You can also hit feather right here, but we'll just leave it for right now. Refine mask and refine selection are the same thing, just in case you're wondering. And that's normally what I do right here, but so as you can see, it's only affecting the flowers. Color range is really useful. If you want to take out a very particular color, then you make your mask out of your color range, because generally it's going to look crazy like you see right here. All those small little selections it created at first. That's generally what you get. It's really hard to get anything that's useful unless you're just trying to replace a color, in which case it's a very good tool. So now I'm going to show you the quick selection tool, and this is probably the best one in my opinion. You just have a brush. It follows the same rules with Control, Alt, Shift, and, Command or uh, Option on a Mac to add and subtract and everything from. It follows all the basic rules for selections. But it paints, and it's like a mix between the Magic Wand tool and a quick mask. So I'm setting my brush. It's generally a good idea to not have 100% hardness, but you'll find out that you only have to drag it a little bit inside the selection, and it'll select all of the touching, everything that's touching, really well. So now I am holding an Alt to deselect these little, I guess these extra petal things, the green, and it'll learn eventually what you're trying to select. It's a rather smart tool. So the quick select is one that I use a lot. You often, like you see here, combine it with the lasso tool, and using selections, it is all about combining. It's usually about a two-part process. It might be a refine edge, often is. It might be a quick selection and a refine edge, or it might be quick selection and a couple lassos, and then a refine edge. You'll find that your workflow in making selections will start to come together, and there's really no right answer. It just depends on what you're doing. So it's basically learned by the end of the selection that I wanted all the purple. So like you saw earlier, I'm just going to do it again. When you're deselecting the things you don't want after you've made your initial selection with the quick selection tool, you only have to touch it a little bit. I'm not going past, because of the size of my brush, I'm just being lazy, but I'm not going past the flower petals. But as you can see, it's deselecting past the flower petals, so now I'll make my brush a little smaller. I encourage you to zoom in whenever possible, considering it's just a small matter of hitting Z. But one thing you will notice with the tool is it does learn as you go along. So there's quite a few more ways of making selections, and I'll be hitting them in different videos. But know that selections are the main tool of Photoshop, and altering images utilizes selections because that. But watch the video on masks, and you'll get a really good idea. You know, it'll really round out this section. So keep watching, keep practicing, and we'll go into some more advanced stuff in later episodes. Thanks for watching.